Okay, what about the activity-based method? Now this is going to be more detailed, more costly to implement and track, but this is going to provide better information here. So what I've done is on the dry erase board, I've written out some of the example that I gave you here just a minute ago on page 2. So rather than the 300,000 total overhead, I've divided it into 3 different pieces. I said there's a supervisor salary of 60,000, utilities of 100,000, and inspection cost of 140,000. Altogether, 60 plus 140 is 200, plus 100 more is 300. This is our 300,000 total overhead, but now I'm breaking it apart into 3 different cost pools. Okay, so there, we've broken that out, and what activity-based costing allows us to do is to say, how do these behave? How should we allocate this 60,000, 100,000, 140,000 to our actual products, the standard and the custom, based on how they behave? And previously we just used our direct labor here. See, here we had the same numbers of what our estimated direct labor hours for products were. The standard was 1,000 units and custom was 500. We're only going to use this cost driver now for our supervisor salary. I've gone through and I've said, what are the cost drivers for these 3 different pools? Well, we said supervisor salary is going to behave most like direct labor hours, so we need to use direct labor hours to allocate that. And then I said utilities is going to be driven based on machine hours. Inspection costs are going to be based on the number of inspections. So we need to see how much of standard and custom units are using each one of these pieces. And that's how we're going to allocate under activity-based costing. So we're going to break these apart more detailed using the actual driver involved. So now let's look at what I've given for the estimates under each of these cost drivers. So I said the same thing like we had before. For 1,000 direct labor hours used for standard, 500 used for custom. These are a little bit offline there, so you can see them pointing right there. So a total of 1,500 direct labor hours. We would divide that. We would divide the 60,000 in our cost pool divided by the total number of hours that we have, since this is our driver, and we're going to say $40 per direct labor hour is going to be allocated to these products for our cost pool supervisor salary. Do the same thing for utilities and inspection. So we have a total of $100,000 for utilities cost, but I've broken this apart. 10,000 machine hours are going to be used for the standard units. Custom units are more custom, they require more machine hours, so we're going to estimate 40,000 there for machine hours used for custom units. Total of 50,000. What's 100,000 divided by 50 is 2. So for every machine hour that a product uses, they're going to be allocated $2 of utilities cost for that. Now let's look at inspection here. 140,000 is the amount in our inspection cost pool. This is driven based on the number of inspections that occur for each product line. So standard units are more standard. There's less to actually inspect, so we only have to have 10 inspections for the period. Custom units are more custom, so they have also 10 inspections, but there's a lot less. We only have 100 custom units that we're building, 500 standard units that we're building. So for the per unit amount inspections, we're inspecting a lot fewer custom units per inspection than we are for the standard unit. So a total of 20 inspections are conducted during the year. 140,000 divided by 20 is 7,000 there. So for each inspection, we're going to allocate 7,000 to that particular product line, standard or custom. Okay, let's continue to work through our study guide here on page 2. I'm going to erase the dry erase board, give you a second to either write that down or catch up, look at the study guide of what we're doing going forward. Now we need to allocate these to the actual product line. Now let's look at standard and custom. Okay, we're going to figure out how much for the supervisor salary, for utilities, and for inspection they need to be allocated under each of these different pieces. So we need to allocate, I'm on paragraph second from the bottom. Standard units use 1,000 direct labor hours for a cost of $40,000. Where do we get that? Remember we had 40 down here, 40 times the 1,000 that we're using. 1,000 times 40 is 40,000 there that we're going to allocate. And here we said custom units are are using 500 direct labor hours times that same 40, that's 20,000 there. So what's our total that we're allocating? The 40 and the 20, that's our 60 from our cost pool. We're allocating our total cost pool there of 60, but we're breaking it out by direct labor hours. 40,000 goes to the standard units, and 20,000 goes to our custom units. We're going to do the same thing for these next two pieces, utilities and inspection, but we're going to do it based on other cost drivers. So a minute ago we said $2 per unit, $2 per machine hour is going to be allocated to each of these products. So how much needs to be allocated to our standard and how much to our custom? Well, I gave you those estimates a minute ago. 10,000, draw a line there. 10,000 machine hours are going to be used for the standard. So we have 20,000 there for standard allocation, and here we have, I said 40,000 was used machine hours wise for our custom products. So there we have 80,000 there for a total of 100,000. Okay, so we allocated our entire cost pool, but we broke it out based on our machine hours. This time we're going to do it for inspection. Remember we said 7,000 for each inspection, and we're going to do it based times the number of inspections under each product. We had 10 under both, so that's 70,000, 70,000 for a total of 140. We allocated our entire cost pool there, 70 and 70. This ties back to what we had on the previous dry erase board, our total cost pool for inspection. So let's add all this up. What do we have under each one of these different pieces? So I'm just going to do that, change that to 40 so it's easy to see across. So that's 40, 60 plus another 70 is 130K. Boom. Right here now for the custom units, we'll change that so it's easy to see across. 20,000. 20 plus 80 plus 70 is 170K. Now we're allocating our 300,000 that we had previously in one pool. We're allocating it more specifically using our additional cost drivers and additional pools. We broke it apart 130 and 170, which was quite a bit different than what we did previously. We had 200,000 up here and only 100,000 here. So let's erase this here and look at the final step. How do we figure out what our allocation per unit was? Well, we're just going to take these numbers and divide by the number of actual units we have under each one of these different product lines. So 130,000, we had 500 standard units, so that's a total of 260 in overhead allocation related to standard units. Now we're going to divide by the 100 units that we're estimating under custom. 1,700 is our overhead allocation under activity-based costing for the custom units. What did we have previously? Well, whenever we did our traditional method, we had 400 here as the overhead allocation for standard, and 1,000 as the overhead allocation for custom. So with this new information, the new activity-based costing method, we are saying that our original allocation under the traditional method for standard was too high. Actually, our overhead costs here are only 260. But what we were figuring out before under our traditional method, which was we said was 1,000, was actually too low. So under a more accurate allocation method, we're saying that the overhead allocation piece, the overhead costs are 1,700. We would add this and we would add this to whatever the direct materials and direct labor costs are, and that would determine what our estimated cost for each one of these different types of units would be. We would use this information to say this is what our total cost is. We're gonna build in a profit margin, and we're gonna add maybe 20% or 30% to charge to our customers, so we have some profit there. We have more accurate cost information which we can use to better price our products and better run our business. That's the idea behind activity-based costing method.